for coming to join us this evening. I appreciate the love and the support of community, and particularly I want to thank my Moorpark College family for being here with me, and my VCCD family for being here, and my family, my sister and my nieces and my brother-in-law and grandmother and so folks are online. So I'm so glad to have family be able to join. I have friends joining me from San Francisco are on the line. So it's wonderful to have this opportunity. I'm going to sort of share a handful of poems with you this evening, and some of the poems are newer poems, and most of them are actually older poems. And one of the things they begun to do this past, well, actually probably in the past 3 months, is write again. So for a long time, I just sort of, as some of you know, I just sort of got really consumed with the academic career and with the administrative work and volunteering and all the other things that happen in life, and having a teenage son and all of that. And so writing was kind of the last thing I was doing, or really not doing at all. And so this is an opportunity for me to sort of start back again in some way of writing. And so the newer poems, who knows what they're like, but I'm happy to be able to share them with you. The first poem I'm going to read to you is called Why I Write. And this is actually an older poem. And it's one I wrote actually when I was at BU. And I was teaching full time and going through the program there. And so why I write. I believe a poem exists between love and death. A poem is oatmeal, no, jollof rice and fried plantains and neck bones. I want to write poems sturdy and shameless, like weeds. I write poems because it is the only way I can calculate the cosine of an angle. I write poems because they ask questions of the ancestors. A poem is a famished road between a whisper and a shout. A poem knows your name even if your mother forgets it. It talks to no one, but everyone listens. To write, you must forget your name at the door. To write, you must embrace the dust bunnies and cluttered hallways of your childhood. A poem does not tell time correctly. A poem is waiting at the street corner for a sandwich and a bag of new clothes. A poem sifts your tears and gives them back to you without salt. I write because I am hungry. I write because I will die to the world of song. I write because I must believe. So, thank you. Jollof rice, for some of you might know, is an African staple. It's pretty West African. It's rice in tomato sauce, and it's a staple from where I grew up. The next poem is actually a poem I wrote. A colleague of mine in Connecticut, when he retired, I was here, and my friend said to me, David is retiring, and David was a professor of communication studies and English, and our offices were back to back. And actually, for about a year, we were in the same office. There was 2 faculty members in the same office. And David was the professor who, when summer started, so really in Connecticut, that would be like in May. When summer started, David would sort of change his clothing. So he would start wearing sandals to school and this belt that is like a hemp rope belt. And so you would know he's changed into his summer gear, right? So this is a poem really it was written for my colleague David. And it's a poem about teaching. It's a poem about learning, but it's also a poem about the love of words. So David was the speech teacher at Quinnipiac Valley, and he impressed upon a lot of people the value of the word, but also the value of how you phrase and frame and build words. So this poem is called Learners First for David. This love of words and gestures, this love of the world of knowing is like a trip to a foreign country. You start out packing the right suspenders, socks, and encyclopedia of the country's temperament. Something in case the water does not agree with you. The postcards prepare you well, or so you think. Then the ambitions give way to the lived stories. Enter stage left, the housewife, fear of public speaking, her very breath stolen from her by the possibilities. Center stage, the returning warrior, whose stories are bustling to be unleashed. The world that gives us speech takes it away from us with one stroke of a pen, slash of the sword. David, here you are coaching from the sidelines, posture here, phrasing there. The frogs on the pond reminding us that it is time to take off our socks. Jettison the suspenders for khaki and a belt of hemp rope. Organizing the chaos of thought into eloquence requires socks off from spring to early winter. Happy, you remind us that this world of knowing is so much about unknowing and unlearning as it is about being prepared. The joke there is that college had a pond and there were frogs that would kind of sort of signal the start of a particular time of the year. This next poem is called New Beginnings, and I think it's probably appropriate given the new beginning of the year, the new beginning of a new administration. And this is actually a poem that I wrote for my niece Maya. When my nieces were, when my nieces and nephews, before they were born, I started a tradition that I would write a poem for them. So at the baby shower, I would give the parents, in this case, my sister and my brother-in-law, a poem for the baby. And so if my niece Leah is on the line, I did write one for you, Leah. You have one. I just found the one for Maya. I couldn't find yours, so I'm using the bookmark that we created for Maya's baby shower. So Maya was born in 2000 and actually 2008. And so as you can see, Maya is about to become a young woman. This poem is called New Beginnings. Fingers folded like pastry, a wedge of prayer, crosses from dream into possibility. There you are, bundled infinite millions of cells, particles of pink, purple, crab blue, dark silk of our earthly imagination. There you are, wry shore of possibilities. There you are, right shore of possibilities. To us, you are drowsy inhabitant of the waters of the womb. Someday you will know an ice cream cone, flecks of ecstasy, tasseled red, white, and blue on your tongue. Maya, this is the world, this is our world, honeysuckle sweet in its desire for logic. That is only half the story. It is in this world that awaits you, Maya. There are Guzmans and Linus. There are Dikwegbas, Hardings, and Sokenus. It relays as well. In this world that awaits you, Maya, daughter of Michael and Flaviana, sister of Leah, in this world that awaits you, there's Christian, there's Senna, there's Annalisa. Maya, there's Timmy, there's Michael, there's Koye. So much of who we are is written. So much of what we are to become is in the 4 cardinal points. So the names I read were the names of Maya's cousins, and one of them is my son, Michael. And this poem ends with a sort of projection into the 4 cardinal points, because in my culture, in Yoruba culture, children come from the 4 cardinal points, and each individual is a replication of 16 people. So this whole notion that you come from the 4 cardinal points and they come from 4, and etc. So that's sort of the reference to the 4 cardinal points there. Let's see. Okay. This poem is titled Provincetown, Summer 1998. And I was just looking at, it's an older poem. And I was just looking at one of my poetry books. And when I was in a poetry group, there was a recommendation that I call this poem, What Desire Writes. What Desire Writes. Okay, so let's see, do I have to? There are references to places in Provincetown, Massachusetts. And so if you don't know Provincetown is a fishing village, as we used to call it, in Massachusetts, and on Cape Cod, and it is sort of notorious for being a summer gay vacation spot. So Provincetown, summer 1998. The blue-black fuzz of memory reveals itself one snippet at a time. The Atlantic revs up like a baby's gurgle of delight. Icy touch of breeze on my lower back. Drizzle of Zima down my throat. Later, your tongue, scalpel-like in its precision, will track the small of my back. It is Provincetown, 1998. Summer of Dick Duck, cocktails at Bayside Betsy. The drag queens, descendants of Paleolithic birds, beckon us to tea dance. On the bay, dry, cold sun in its lemon glow. You and me at the dance, a tea dance at the boat slip, clasping and unclasping of flesh against flesh, bone looking for tissue, for softness. What desire writes upon the body cannot be corrected, cannot be made to order. We are tourists trading the wages of winter for the tanned and new torsos of summer. When I started this poem, Klaus, I wasn't thinking of you. Nothing designer or constructed about you. For a moment, we are celebrities of our own making. You and me wrapped in the thump of house music, kiss of flesh clinging to our wet shirts. For a moment, the sick have forgotten their T cells, plummeting down the charts. For a moment, no lie is being told about what we want from each other. Today, as I sit down to write about what impression loss leaves on the body. Today, days away from my 46th birthday, single and hopeful, Klaus, this is what desire writes upon the body. I sat down to write about desire, about loss. For a moment, everything became clear. So clear, I could touch it. Provincetown, 1998. I could touch it, touch the me in Provincetown, 1998. So clear, I saw me, heard me, ringing like a bell. Let's see. This next poem is a poem about depression. Some of us are ourselves dealing with depression, or we have family members who are dealing with depression, and it can be a scourge, or you can choose to look at it as a gift, but it definitely marks you. Depression. Every warrior is a bit of a thief. Every warrior frightens himself. Termites are staring at the stone without hope. 200 needles do not make a hoe. You dance in the face of death. Others drink wine, you drink blood. Every warrior is a bit of a thief. You lock the door, keep the key in your pocket. We are pregnant with destruction. Here, peace lies exhausted on the ground. A stick cannot kill hunger. Grief is a town in which the dictator is always innocent. Lock the door, keep the key in your pocket. Debt hangs around your neck. An army of poisonous yams and thorny shrubs will not protect you. A straight tree is the pride of the forest. Rain, pack your belongings and go away. Grief is a town in which the dictator is always innocent. Okay. The next poem, and give me a sense of when I'm close to 20 minutes, please, Phil, just flag me down so I can stop. The next poem is called Son, S-O-N, and this is a poem that I wrote quite a while ago, actually, and it was one of the things that you realize, or that I realized about life, is that often our parents are themselves sort of struggling with their notion of themselves, and often they do the best that they can under the circumstances. And it took me a lot to get to that place, lots of therapy. And because I think one of the things you do, especially I think with fathers and sons, and I would like to think in my own history anyway, an African father and an African son, that one of the gifts we can give one another is the gift of forgiveness and grace. And it took me becoming a father to understand this. And I think when it dawned upon me that, my father, imperfect as he is, was doing the best he can given what he knows and where he came from, I had to kind of then testify to that, right? And you do that through your poem. I do that through my poem. The poem is also written for my son, Michael. So it has that sort of crossing of generations, shifting of identities, performances of parenthood and childhood. And so it's called Son, S-O-N. Son. Behind every peak is a butte. What there is in the barrens, I give you permission to know. I give you the color yellow. I pray you know when you walk in the shadow of death. No, you will not hear growls or snarls, but bluebirds, spring brewing like bones. Gamble, yearn. A man who loves a woman is secure. He is like a melody on a summer night. A man who loves another man embraces the forbidden. A woman who loves another woman is life pried open, salutes the luster of eyes. A woman who loves a man is a visible procession of gifts. Anyone who loves honors the irrational, makes a home inside a lover's kiss. Hold your daddy like a scraped knee, your daddy who holds his daddy like a bitter memory. My father had two faces and a workroom where he sculpted his sons. Michael, I am a mess of intentions. What do you need, my son? I have two brothers and three sisters. You will not always be golden. Or better, you may be picked last. Lick the palm oil off your index finger. You learn to forgive. Somewhere there is a perfect father. Bearing you upon my back, we are steady, familiar, grinning to the stars. You say, when I big boy, I shave like you, daddy. I think of my father, the one with the two faces, a workroom of perfect sons ready on the shelf. Fathers are always perfecting their sons. Sons are always leaving their fathers. Okay, so I will do this last poem, and it is the poem that is in the Black Lives Matter video anthology. And thank you so much for, first of all, Sandra, for insisting that I send a poem and reminding me constantly that I should do this. And I appreciate and I value your friendship, but also your mentorship and your nagging. This poem I started a while ago, and then I kind of just left it. And then when George Floyd was murdered, when the call for racial justice, when the struggle to display, to honor, to acknowledge the humanity of Black men and Black women and Black boys in this world and in this country and in this time, when that struggle came to the attention, right? The attention of the country at large, the experience that many of us had became really kind of familiar, for lack of a better word, to everyone else. And when that happened, the grief that I just sort of felt in me, and when you go through that experience, and you go through that experience as a leader, and you're having to sort of not only be available and take care of those who are in your community, and in my case, of a college community, but also looking to take care of yourself. And often we are trained, and I think we tend to do this more than men in particular, but I think those of us that are Black men and that are successful, we take on this mantle of responsibility, and rightfully so in some areas, but we also need to take care of ourselves, and we take that on. And I took on that grief, and I realized that it was kind of just eating at me. And so I went back to the poem I had started a couple of years before, and started tweaking it to sort of speak to this whole idea of grief and the grief that one carries, and the grief that is a manifestation of loss, that is a manifestation of, in some cases, desire for acknowledgement. So, grief, a creation story, and this is the last poem. Pet of death and twin of memory. After all, the nose of the horse is farthest from its tail. Grief sings to the magnificent evening dew. Be black as the eye of the needle, fluid as the sigh of an echo. Let the hurt of the world wash off your back like dust. This is not a fairy tale. The moon is a duck round as a sailor's bundle. Who builds a house but sleeps outside of it? Grief, of course. The earth is ours in name only. Once spoken, the names no longer apply. The world was a blue movie in the creator's eye. Grief under the banana tree looks into the eye of the abyss. Imagination takes flight on ears of wheat. Grief, maiden with a skirt of blue serpents. Grief, traveler not to be met at daybreak. Grief, contrary as laughter at execution. You are the postman delivering a sack of ashes. You are a wreath of bones. You are a glimpse stolen from the silent kingdom of unbecoming. Thank you so much.